Hi everybody, my name is Michael Keane, and let's talk about the Blu-ray, the special limited edition Blu-ray from Severin Films of 1980's The Changeling, starring George C. Scott and directed by Peter Medak. This release came out earlier this year, 2018, and is quite a beast, to say the very least. This is the best that The Changeling has ever looked on any sort of media, at least since its original premiere. It's been cleaned up very nicely, and yeah, let's get into that. The Changeling is the story of John Russell, who is a composer and pianist, played by the amazing George C. Scott, who is very ornery, and he has every right to be ornery because his wife and child in the opening moments of this film are brutally murdered by a horrifying car accident, which leads us directly into the credits and into his new life. He hasn't changed up too much as far as we can tell. He's still a composer, still a pianist, but he's getting back into the game. He's going to teach at a school, and he is getting himself a new house. So hopefully he can get past these horrible memories and move on with his life. Unfortunately, that is not to be. The house that he moves into, which is, by the way, a little big for you, John. I know you need a piano and stuff, but you have no family. You're a single guy. Now, you don't need a mansion. But here we are. You got yourself a mansion, whatever. Some people are into that. I'm a small apartment kind of guy. You know, maybe a little 2-story house. That's about as big as I get. John here, mansion. Cool, not gonna judge. So, John moves into this new house, and very soon, very quickly, things go a little cray. You see, this particular house is haunted, and, well, John, he actually takes this pretty well. He takes this news that his house is haunted pretty well.
She said the house didn't want people. She's mistaken. Whatever it is trying desperately to communicate.
There's a few memories that he has to deal with, tries to get rid of them, doesn't work out for him, and he decides to try and communicate with the spirit haunting the house, and well, a whole lot of craziness follows. I don't know what else to say about this movie, because you really need to go in fresh, I think. There is a whole mystery here. The film starts off very slow. It's a very slow burn film, and as the film continues, as we kind of learn John's routine, as we learn about this house, its history, things start to ramp up slowly but surely, and eventually we're in full-on scare mode. Shit's getting burned down, and things are falling, and there's loud noises, and there's a bong, bong. And all sorts of craziness. There's a wheelchair that attacks a woman. It's insane. There's even a scene that I am 99% certain directly influenced The Ring. And I'm not going to spoil it, but when you get there, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's very, very direct. This is a very adult, almost thriller kind of movie. It's very much a horror film, don't get me wrong. But it's very adult in the way that it approaches ghosts, in the way that it approaches the conflicts that these characters have. All the characters have conflicts that are very much something that older folks can really relate to. So, for example, obviously George C. Scott's character, John, has lost his family. That's kind of a big deal and something that you really don't, hopefully, worry about until your later years. Similarly, his love interest / realtor, who works for the local historical society, she's dealing with her job. There is a senator character who, gosh, you know, now that I'm thinking about it, I really can't describe too much of what these characters go through because it's a lot of spoilers. And if you haven't seen this movie, you should watch it immediately. And of course, if you're going to watch it, you should buy this Blu-ray. Now, one of the things that I can talk about without getting too spoilery is the fact that this film is it's well shot. Very well shot. The cinematographer, John Kokian, I have no idea how to say his last name, but he shot Straw Dogs, and he is amazing at what he does. He's just great. And in this particular film, there's all sorts of techniques on display that really are worth mentioning. But one of the most important things, to me anyway, is the fact that he uses a lot of wide-angle shots in very tight spaces. And even though all of these scenes are shot on sets, it really feels like you're watching something that is shot in a real-life place. For example, there's a scene in this green room where the camera is tucked away into a corner, or at least that's what it feels like. Obviously, there's no corner there. They've just taken out the wall and put the camera in its stead. But in the film itself, the way that we're watching it as a viewer, you really feel like they just shoved this camera in a corner with a wide-ass lens and shot from that point. And it makes these locations that later, some extraordinary things happen in these locations. And when those things do happen, it feels all the more realistic because we feel like we've been in this actual place. And that's just one of the many magical things about this film. So that's pretty much all I'm going to say about the movie. It's amazing. It's a great film. It's definitely the best ghost story of the 1980s. And yes, I'll even fight Ghostbusters. I'm not going to fight Ghostbusters. That's not true. I'm not going to. It's the best serious ghost movie of the 1980s. It's amazingly well acted. George C. Scott just destroys. I wouldn't necessarily say it's his best performance. There's so many great George C. Scott performances. Just in that decade, Hardcore was a big one. Is that the 70s or 80s? Maybe that's the 70s. Either which way, Hardcore is a great performance by George C. Scott. The Exorcist 3, previously mentioned, great performance. Obviously, Patton. A lot of great performances, but he still puts in one hell of a performance in this film. The cast of characters aside from him are great. Cinematography, great. Direction by Peter Medak, great. Everything's great. I just watch it. It's fucking scary and makes you think about life, which is also scary. Now, let's get to the special features. This disc is not necessarily jam-packed, but it's one disc. If you get the limited edition, you also get a CD with the soundtrack, which is pretty cool. Great soundtrack. We'll get to that in a second. But the disc itself, in addition to the amazing high-definition transfer, you get an audio commentary, which is probably the most baller of all the extras, with director Peter Medak and producer Joel Michaels, hosted by Severin's David Gregory. It's a very informative commentary that alone makes the disc worth its price tag, partly because Medak is amazing to listen to. Like, seriously, his Hungarian accent, it rivals that of Werner Herzog. I know that's heresy, but his accent and Werner Herzog, like, if I could have them dual reading an audiobook, that would be amazing. That would be great. And if that audiobook was Romeo and Juliet, even better. The first featurette is a very interesting bit of backstory about the real-life location, which is located in Cheeseman Park, which is an odd name. And I'm glad that this movie was not called House at Cheeseman Park, because that would have been weird. It's good stuff. And it's kind of strange how much of the actual real-life story, whether or not it's true or not, I don't think it's true, but the real-life story, how much it's really, really well represented in the film. It's kind of crazy how much the two intersect. So definitely watch that. Next up, we have an interview with composer Rick Wilkins, which is enjoyable, but it's a little bit less educational. Rick kind of just dodders around, plays us some tunes, and talks about getting hired for the film and kind of his approach. I don't want to undersell it, but I also don't want to oversell it. It's a fine featurette. It's kind of your normal, let's talk to a guy who's, how many years removed? Like 40 years removed? Almost 40 years removed from the film. And, he remembers this and that. He does have a weird way of describing the kind of horror movie this is. Check this out.
It's not a scary movie like Godzilla.
It's a weird way to put it, Rick. It's a weird way to put it. I mean, good on you, but it's a weird way. We also get a special featurette about Trevor Williams, who is the production designer on the film and his work. It's really cool to see what he did to create these locations, which feel so realistic and are almost entirely either sets for the interiors or for that main house, a giant facade. Now, unfortunately, Williams died in 2008, so that means that the interview portion of this featurette is actually handed over to the film's art director, Ruben Fried. This was one of his first roles, first jobs in the industry. He talks about Trevor's methods and what he did to help with the film's overall artistic quality, and it's a good featurette. It's good. It's very informative, and it's another good one. Yes. So another great featurette. Moving on, we also get a interview with, of course, because this is a horror movie release, why not? An interview with Mick Garris, who of course is, on one hand, a horror director, but on the other hand, and more importantly, a horror fan. My God, does that man love horror movies. And you know what? It's a Mick Garris interview. I don't know what else to tell you there. If you know what a Mick Garris interview is like, this is one of them. It's pretty short, nothing too much to write home about, but you get to hear Mick Garris nerd out about a movie. So if that's your thing, dig in. Yeah. Which, by the way, side note, check out his podcast, Postmortem with Mick Garris. It's put out by Blumhouse. It's pretty good. It's not as good as Shockwaves, but it's a pretty darn good podcast. You should definitely check it out. The final featurette is a pretty standard locations tour. We go around the world, kind of. We go to Canada and we go to New York. That's pretty much, I think, it. And we see all these places where they shot the film, and it's cool. Don't get me wrong, it's very cool. We get a couple cameos of people who probably don't belong on camera, but it's kind of cool to see them for like 30 seconds.
I'm Michael Gingold.
Hi, and I'm Ted Gagan.
And welcome to the Locations featurette for Peter Medak's The Changeling.
Anyway, it's a fun featurette. It's very informative, but it's also, I don't know, it has like this weird sort of almost YouTube quality vibe to it that I expected a little bit more. They obviously had various camera crews shooting this, and it's to round out the extras, it's a little lame, but overall, it's good. It's a good featurette, and that's what I can say about all of these. They're at the bare minimum good featurettes. Some better than others, but it all works out. It's all worth it for that sweet, sweet audio commentary. That said, I was a little disappointed that Peter Medak did not have a video interview in this Blu-ray. It seemed a little weird that they were able to get a commentary track with him, but couldn't get a video interview. Not a big deal, but it's one of those little things that doesn't knock off any points, but it could if I was mean. Now, I'm not going to harp too much on the image quality of these Blu-rays that I'm reviewing because, quite frankly, there's better resources for that. If you really want to pixel peep these suckers, you can go to those websites, check them out, whatever, man, that's you. That being said, a lot of these releases are going to look a little crappy because they aren't really giving the producers of the disc a lot to work with. That being said, The Changeling looks fucking great. Like, holy cow, it's just a great, great transfer. The restoration's amazing. There are some scenes where there is a little bit more grain, a little less sharpness, especially in the opening, but overall they are vastly outnumbered by just beautiful scenes, beautiful shots, and everything it looks good. It looks great. And that's my technical review. I don't know what to say. This is one of the best releases that Severin has put out. I highly recommend this Blu-ray. Go get it. It's an amazing film, amazing transfer, good special features, and just, it's an important part of any horror nerd's collection. So I'm gonna put that out there. And you know what? Any film nerd's collection. So check it out. If you're gonna buy it, I'm not sponsored by anybody, obviously, look at my channel, but if you're gonna buy it, I do highly recommend buying through Diabolic DVD. Now, you're not going to get the same 2-day shipping that Amazon does, derp, but they're a great bunch of guys. I say bunch of guys. I don't actually know who runs Diabolic DVD. It might be less than a couple guys, to be honest, but it's a very small operation. They're very dedicated to, let's call it, out there cinema, and I appreciate them. I love them, and they work their asses off, and I highly suggest going to Diabolic DVD and purchasing this film If not, fuck it, go to Amazon, whatever. Either which way, it's totally worth the money. Buy the film, it's great. It's a terrible way to end a show, but that's all I got. Watch this film. Get scared.